Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie B and I read a ridiculous amount of books. That's even with 2 jobs. I don't really know how I do it, but then again, one of them does allow me to read books on shift when there's nothing else to do. So for those who haven't been here before, I work at a theatre on some evenings a week, and if the show is on and you're not working inside the auditorium where you have to be watching the stage and the audience, if you're on the outside of the auditorium, there's not much to do while the show is on, so we are allowed to read books and chat to each other until the interval or the end of the show. So yeah, I always say that's one of my favourite jobs because I basically am paid to read books and watch theatre. Dream. It's the dream. Today's book is a weird one. It is called The Book of Living Secrets and it's by Madeleine Roux. This book started off very teenage, young adult fantasy, and then as the book progressed it got weirder and weirder and weirder to the point where at the end I was just like, I really did not see that coming. Not at all. Let's get in with that blurb, shall we? No matter how different best friends Adele and Connie are, one thing they've always had in common is their love of a little-known gothic romance novel called Moira. So when the girls are tempted by a mysterious man to enter the world of the book, they hardly suspect it will work. But suddenly, they are in the world of Moira, living among the characters they've obsessed about for years. Except, all is not how they remembered it. The world has been turned upside down. The lavish balls and star-crossed love affairs are now interlaced with unspeakable horrors. The girls realise that something dark is lurking behind their foray into fiction, and they will have to rewrite their own arcs if they hope to escape this nightmare with their lives. So yeah, this is in young adult fiction, though I must admit, it says young adult 13+, but there were kind of some borderline adult themes in there. Things kind of like on the way to swearing, but not quite, like, there's use of like the F word, not as in like the actual F word, but just as it's just literally written in the book as F word. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's kind of borderline. One of the reviews said splendidly bizarre, and I completely agree with that. It just got weirder and weirder the further you get into the story. So yeah, you got Adele and Connie, and they're absolutely best friends, have been for a very, very long time, and they have been obsessed with this book called Moira. And there is nothing known about the author. When they've tried to look up the author and her other works, there's mentioned on the back of the book about an award-winning series from the author which they've never been able to find. And yeah, so this book and its author are just clouded in secrecy almost, because it feels like Adele and Connie are part of this like tiny little fan club that nobody actually knows about. And as I was reading, it was just like, The Book of Living Secrets, like, this title is very weird. As I was going through, I was surprised it wasn't called Moira, just to kind of reflect the book within the book. But yeah, so after being completely obsessed with this story and falling in love with the world that this character lives in, Moira, and this early 1800s in Boston, in Massachusetts, America, and the book Moira is also set in Boston, so when they do actually find themselves inside the book, they are using their knowledge of modern day Boston to get themselves around 1800s Boston. But yeah, so just jump straight into the whole they are in the book thing. They hang out at this little bookshop quite often, and the owner worker there is like very mysterious. He's always dressed in black, and there's one night when they go in and this man says, "Do you want to go inside your book?" Basically, and he performs magic and they find themselves in the book completely separate from each other. And so they use the time in the book and they try to figure out like where they are in the plot, and then they realise that the world that they have entered does not reflect anything that they have read in the book. So Connie and Adele, also known as Deli, yeah, they find themselves completely separated when they enter the world of Moira. They are using their knowledge of modern day Boston to kind of understand where they are and to find each other. Just describing this book feels a bit bonkers. Because it just gets weirder and weirder as they go through when they realise that the book that they have entered is not the same book that they've been obsessing over for years. Whereas the book Moira focuses on a young woman called Moira in the 1800s in Boston, living in kind of like high society, and her love life of being engaged to somebody while also being in love with somebody else. And the girls realise that things that were described in like one sentence or a side storyline is actually more central to the world that they've entered than they thought. And there's lots of questions, just kind of like, what has happened? I mean, there's describes of like tears in the sky, and you're just like, is this a reference to the fact they're inside the book, that like somebody's like tearing the book apart almost? But one of the girls actually has the book on her, so yeah, it's all very weird. But basically they find out that in the book there's a whole other side of the story that they never knew about, where the locals are being terrorised by this thing that lives into the sea, and that people are sleepwalking into the sea, and people are disappearing, and there's like people like guarding that world. And yeah, I don't know how to describe it without completely spoiling the whole premise of it. But it does just get weirder and weirder. But I was oddly fascinated with it. I find it quite enjoyable to read. It's in historical fiction, romance, paranormal, supernatural, and young adult. And it's 400 pages on ebook. And as I said, the ending I really didn't see coming. It just went in a completely different direction as to where you think it's going to go. But at the same time, you're also looking at the lives of these girls and their relationships. And there is a bit of an LGBTQ storyline in there regarding one of the girls. Yeah, it was fascinating, kind of terrifying. It almost had an element of like a horror story at one point regarding this weird thing that lives in the sea, which is terrorising the public. Yeah, I mean, as usual, I've got a cup of tea on the go. Did I bring my chocolates up with me? I did have chocolates. Oh, yeah. It's Valentine's Day today, so I was given some milk with indoor chocolates. How very nice. And they are very, very tasty. So, I am eating these at the moment. I'm supposed to be kind of like trying to cut down on my sugar intake, but at this point I just don't care. I don't care. But yeah, once they're inside the book and they're separated and they're just trying to find ways to find each other with their knowledge of the story and trying to figure out where they are. And they do also try to figure stuff out based on where their hand was on the book when they first entered the world. But yeah, with them being split up, and one of them actually gets to meet Moira, and they find out that Moira, the character that they've fallen in love with, is nothing like how they thought she was going to be. After being completely in love with this love story for Moira, when you do finally meet Moira within the book, within the world that they're living in the book, you realise that she's not what they thought she was, and she's actually incredibly selfish and jealous, and the boys, the men that Moira's involved with, like the person she's engaged to compared to the person she ends up falling in love with, it's like everything's been completely turned on its head, and no character is who they thought they were. I'm being cryptic for a reason. Because it does just get weirder and weirder and weirder. But I was completely obsessed with it. Yeah, it says perfect for fans of the Hazelwood. Genre-bending page-turner. Well, you can say that again. It starts off as just like a teen rom-com type thing, and then it goes into the fantasy side when they enter the book with all the magic, and then it eventually turns into a kind of a horror thriller when they realise the world they've actually entered into. It's completely ridiculous, but I absolutely loved it. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this before. Maybe this is a theme for Madeleine Roux books, I don't know, but I'm kind of tempted to read other books by her, just to kind of see kind of her themes and like how she writes a bit more. But yeah, The Book of Living Secrets by Madeleine Roux. Madeleine, and we've got the front cover of the book there. The front cover is incredible, and I love how they have the tentacles coming out of the book there. Yeah, I'm not going to say anymore, because it's so bonkers and so ridiculous that trying to delve into that plot will just really go into proper spoiler territory of trying to figure out where it's going to go. And I love the fact that they still have that rom-com type thing happening for both Adele and Connie on their separate journeys to find each other within the book. Oh, it is so weird to talk about a book within a book type thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was dark, it was funny, it had the romance in there, it's got the fantasy and the magic. I feel like there's something for everybody in this book. It's bloody brilliant, wasn't it? But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you on Sunday with another Sequel Sunday. Bye everybody.